Hi guys, Mr. Sonnenberg here. Today we're going to be talking about balancing our intake, so the foods we take in, the amounts and types of micronutrients and trace elements that we bring into our bodies. Um, we want to balance that. So this is Science 9. This is for you students studying environmental chemistry. It's topic 1 in your textbook. Now would probably be a good time to get out a pen and a paper and to jot down some notes throughout the screencasts for your own reference and to assist you when you have to study. So the first thing we have that's really, I think it's a fantastic document in Canada, is the Canada Food Guide, and it's been around for a long time, but uh, just a great idea in Canada. Just more people need to use it. But what it is it splits up into it splits up our intake into 4 categories. So 1, grain products, which is going to be our carbohydrates. 2, vegetables and fruits, which is going to be our vitamins. 3, milk products, which is going to provide us with calcium for our bone development and teeth development. And then 4, meat and alternatives, which is going to provide us with our proteins and our lipids. Now, those are the organic compounds that we need to survive. Okay, we need those for optimal health. Those carbohydrates are going to help us to move, grow, think. They're going to give us the energy. The vitamins here, or the vegetables and fruits, are actually going to help our enzymes to fire and create their functions by increasing chemical reactions in our bodies. Okay, and then the milk products is going to strengthen up our structure, and meat and alternatives is actually going to build and repair our cells and help us to grow. And that's what our proteins are going to do. So this Canada Food Guide is great. So what it actually does is it'll sit here or it'll tell you how many servings per day on average you should have. Now, they don't have just one number because people are different. We have different sizes, different builds, different functions throughout the day. Um, if you're a young active male versus maybe an older active female, you might want to consume different amounts, but this gives you a ballpark number of how many servings per day. So this down meat and alternatives, you want 2 to 3 per day, and so we're talking lean protein. So what it actually does is it tells you what one serving would be and what it would look like, and gives you a couple options here. It also, on this side over here, if you take a look, each of these categories kind of shows you what are in there. So very good document. And you're probably wondering, well, we've looked at this in elementary school, so why is he talking about it? Well, each of these is going to help us to reach that optimal amount of micronutrients we need to function at the highest performing level we can and to feel optimal health, and that's the ultimate goal. And so how do we do that? Well, there's that conversion of inorganic compounds that are passed along the chain from plants to animals to us, or from plants to us, and plants being our producers that obtain those nutrients, and they're passed along through bioaccumulation and into our systems. And so sometimes when we feel a little sluggish, it might be because maybe we're lacking micronutrient, or we have too much of it and we have an excess of that specific micronutrient. So how do we monitor our balance our intake and go through a balanced approach to nutrition to ensure that we obtain the organic compounds we need to survive? So a balanced approach, when we take it, sometimes we might have too many micronutrients in our system, and then other times, and it can cause harmful effects. But then on the other hand, we sometimes might be lacking, and which can also cause harmful effects. So just an example is if we're over consuming maybe sodium, so I'm eating a lot of foods with salt, and then that salt, it has sodium, so they're sodium rich. So now I start to retain water, I start to bloat, I don't look good, I don't feel good. And then what's actually happening is that salt's building up plaque on the inside of my arteries, and that plaque is constricting the flow of blood through my arteries, and thus making my heart pump harder, and then obviously leading potentially to a heart attack down the road because I had an excess amount of sodium in my diet. So that micronutrient I would want to limit and I would want to make sure that I'm managing the amount of that nutrient that I have. And what we'll talk about next is the optimal amount. What is the optimal amount? And that's what that Canada Food Guide actually helps us, is what's the optimal amount. If I have 5 to 12 pieces of fruit a day, or vegetables, or I mean carbohydrates, then I'm going to have an optimal amount. But what does a portion size look like? Just because I have a sandwich, maybe one slice of bread is one serving. So we have to be careful when we look at that as well. But so sometimes if I'm lacking, so an example is my mother was lacking in iron and was feeling sluggish, and then so prescribed some iron, and so increasing the amount of that particular micronutrient into her body, to her system, and then obviously was feeling a lot better. So sometimes it can have harmful effects to our body if we don't manage the amount of intake, whether we're having too much, and we want to find that magic number, which is called our optimal amount. So the optimal amount of a substance, uh, that's the amount that provides us with the best health. So again, if I'm overdoing the sodium for years, it's causing bloating, retaining water, and eventually potentially leading to a heart attack. Then I need to find the optimal amount of sodium in my body. If I'm lacking iron, I have an iron deficiency, I have to maybe add some iron to make sure that I have that optimal amount. So this optimal amount is actually is really important. So the Canada Food Guide is going to help us to look at, well, what's the optimal amount of organic compounds that we need in our body. So how many grains do I need that form carbohydrates? How many vegetables and fruits do I need that form vitamins? How many proteins or meat and alternatives do I need to form proteins, right? What's the optimal amount to ensure that I have the best and highest level of health that I can have? So it's important that we understand that. So just take, for example, if I was to go in with an iron deficiency and I want to take, or medications, sometimes what happens is a doctor will prescribe and say, here, take these specific medications. Because what's happening in our body is there's always constantly chemical reactions occurring. We're breaking down the food, we're digesting the food that we're ingesting, right? And so sometimes we have too many micronutrients, sometimes not enough, but it leads to imbalances, and then sometimes that's what leads to pain, that's what leads to headaches, that's what leads to discomfort in our bodies, and we get all these different symptoms. And it's because we don't have optimal amounts of the specific micronutrients or chemicals that we need to properly function. So what happens is when we go to the doctor, if you were to look at a prescription, it might say a specific amount of milligrams. And remember, in micronutrients, it's greater than 100 milligrams, but they might prescribe and say, well, here, take 1,000 milligrams of iron because you have an iron deficiency, so you need to put more into your system. And by doing that, then that's going to relieve that nagging, because now we're closer to that optimal level of health that we need, and those optimal amounts, or those necessary amounts of micronutrients we need, and whether they're or of those inorganic micronutrients, to help us to produce those organic nutrients and utilize them. So there's a basically, we consume plants or animals consume plants, and along the way these micronutrients are passed along, and they're actually converted. So they take in these inorganic compounds, the plants, these nutrients, and they're converted into carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins that we use for optimal health. But we want to balance our approach, and we want to reach that optimal level of health, and we have to do that by having the uh, optimal amounts of these chemicals and nutrients in our bodies. So one way we can do that, like I said, is look at the Canada Food Guide, take a look at it, monitor your diet, and see if you're getting the optimal level of health. And then one would be maybe try it out for a month and say, hey, I'm going to stick directly to this Canada Food Guide, and I'm going to see if I feel any better, if I feel like I have increased energy levels, if some of my aches and pains or my stomach aches or headaches are gone, and just see if this balanced approach really does work. Okay, guys. Well, that's it for the screencast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Okay, bye.